Okay, it's Friday, December 30th, and this is an end of the day SPY report. It's also an end of the month and end of the year SPY report. But there's about 20 minutes to go before the close. I'm just going to shoot the video here and go over a couple of things that A, developed today, and B, that we'll look for going into the start of a new year. So for today, you can see we ended up with a little bit of a down bar here, but we're closing possibly near the top of today's range. It's a very small day. It didn't really follow through much at all from the pre-market lows. But it didn't certainly move up in any way above the halfway point of the prior bar above the pre-market highs to have any kind of an up day. In terms of the actual day itself, you started with a weak, neutral bar near the low end of the pre-market range, and you went down. So I could see trying a sell here, thinking you were gonna, have a 2 down day and maybe work towards that target. But it became pretty clear after one bar where it was red for a while, then it came up and closed, then we tried down again, and then we started up right around here. Was time to just say, well, we're not necessarily going up until we break above the high of the day, but we're certainly pausing on the downside. And you can see from that point on, if you held on to the short trade, it kind of tested up here, never really got anywhere. We had some big shooter bars, but didn't come down to get to the low of the day. We rallied for an hour and a half, tried a downward. We finally took out the low of the day, but then couldn't follow through. So you saw this red bar kind of hold up, and then now, we're kind of moving up a little bit towards the close, possibly. I don't know in the last few minutes what's going to happen, but it really doesn't matter all that much. It was, not a big day to really do much of anything. And you were there was no real reason to really trade the long side, and the downside never really followed through. But anyway, so what that means is on the weekly chart, we're ending up with an big inside week. And the only actionable signal now coming into next week would be either a move above that weekly high or below the weekly low. And we'll target, the prior week's higher low if that should happen, and at that point see if you get momentum, or it could be a big failure. This is the type of thing where I still see it red pausing. We can just kind of come up and fail in some way and start a whole new downtrend into these lows, and we're just gonna have to see what happens. I mean, in terms of the daily chart, again, I'm just seeing this as a big downward move and a kind of a big range in here. So the question is, are you going to break out big to the upside or break to the downside? And price action is going to lead the way. In terms of the monthly chart, we ended up with a red month this month. We didn't reach our target, but it's still red and closer to the lows. So you would think that should at some point test those lows going into January, and then see if you get the follow through all the way down here to the lows in October. And actually at this point, it's a good time just to look at the yearly chart and kind of start thinking a little bit ahead what could be happening. I mean, we're ending up with a big red bar, an outside bar actually to the downside. So you would think that at some point next year we're going to test the lows of that bar. It doesn't have to happen. I mean, we're going to get some opening price here to start the new year, and that's going to be the key line, whether it's green or red as time. If we open somewhere, here and then start up, the new yearly chart's going to be green, and I would trade that to the upside until it turns red. I still think if we look back throughout the history of it all, even this downward move was a pretty big down move. It took out those lows, but it did test those lows before it moved higher. And you can see here that opening price was kind of the key area. It probably went down earlier in the year, and then some point in the middle of the year it turned green, and you should have been buying to the long side. Other red bars, took out lows for 2 years in a row. And then this one here, if you were looking for a 4th year in a row, you could see where the open was. It probably came down, never really reached a new low. And then by the time it turned green, you were going to be biased green, and that green lasted for 5 years. So it's going to be important to kind of monitor the open of the year and see if we go higher or lower. I would think here a red bar near the top of this range, even though it's kind of a 3 bar, it's almost a 2 down bar, you would think you should get some follow through down there. And if we do, and it's a terrible year, you have this target coming up down here and these targets here, we're just going to have to see what year develops. But it's going to be, now we have a whole new, opening price to possibly have a green. This could just be the one broadening to the lower for 2022, and in 2023 maybe we start green and go up all year long. I don't know what's going to happen, but for now, just given the fact that you have this downward move, it's pausing a little bit, you would think it could just easily pause and then continue lower, kind of like here where you came down, paused for 2 weeks, and then eventually had a second leg down. That that could easily happen in here, but we're just going to have to see, how this weekly chart kind of unfolds and how, the new year unfolds or the new month unfolds. So anyway, the actionable signal coming into next week is going to be the break above this inside a week, So on the daily chart, even though we're ending up with a little bit of maybe a green hammer bar, yeah, that could start up from there, but you're really going to have to break above this high and hold, or this low, the weekly low, and hold to really get an actionable signal. Everything else, you're just kind of stuck in here, and that's why we've been getting downward move. Intraday, we've been getting downward moves, upward moves, downward moves that then come up a little bit. This has been a very tricky, choppy environment. The opening price actions kind of, in most cases, dictated where we're going, but in terms of how we start the new year, it's going to be big in terms of this first weekly bar, how we start, and then monitoring the opening price of the year and the month and the and the week, and just see if we stay green, and as long as we stay green, if it should move up, we're going to be biased to the upside, and once we have red, we'll be biased to the downside. But a whole new chart begins to develop starting next year. So let's see what happens today. It was kind of a nothing day. You can see here now with 15 minutes to go, we're trying to move up. Who knows? Maybe we'll just take out these highs and then in the last minute or so fall off. But anything could happen here because we're just kind of chopping around, taking out lows, moving up. Now it looks like we might take out these highs, and we're ending up, bottom line, in the middle of this whole range. So that's it for today. That's it for this year, and let's just see what happens in 2023.